Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's Sean Steiner. It's Vince D'Addario. It's Notre Dame football mailbag day on the show. We've got a lot of Notre Dame football listener submitted questions we're going to get to. And usually when we do mailbag, it's pretty much that. The first hour is mailbag, then the second hour is rapid fire. We do have a Notre Dame men's basketball game coming up tonight, so that means we have an abbreviated show. So we're going to start with some conversation on last night's college football playoff rankings. First, how are you today, Vince D'Addario? Good to see you as always.
Yeah, man, living the dream. Got through Wednesday, so that's always a good thing because we're on the down slope of the last full week before Thanksgiving. So
I know.
TikTok, baby. We just did our last Wednesday at work for the month of November. So I'm happy.
I didn't even think about it that way. Well, I'll be working next Wednesday, so that's why I didn't think about it that way. But yeah, you're like
trying to think, positively
punch
about
the time card. Yeah, that's right.
About the way things are going. You know what I mean?
Got to punch that clock. Yeah.
And I'll be working next Wednesday too with you, but not during the day. That's
True.
the key.
We will be entertaining South Bend and America as 100%. They venture off onto the highways and byways and head home, wherever for Thanksgiving. I do have to say, I was a little disappointed earlier today. I texted you, I'm having a hard time getting motivated today. And what I was expecting from the Dean of Discipline, Vince D'Addario, was, you better get motivated, mister. You've got a show to do tonight.
You were looking for a little motivation, and all you got from me was, sounds about right. Let's do this.
Whatever. Okay.
That works. That's because, the lack of motivation is legit right before the holidays get going. You know what I mean? Like,
rough.
That's a thing.
I had a bad, one of these bad mornings, and like some mechanical things were going wrong, and it's like anything that could go wrong did go wrong, and that kind of stuff. So,
believe me,
here we are. We're going to pick it up. We're going to pick it up at the end of the night. Notre Dame Bellarmine coming up later on tonight. 6:30 is the pregame show. Tony Simeone will have the tip off at 7:00 here on Sports Radio WSBT and the Notre Dame Radio Network. And of course, later this week, Friday night, we actually will not have a show on Friday, because of the fact that we have Notre Dame women's basketball, ND Southern Cal at Purcell Pavilion coming up Friday night.
I'm a little nervous about that game based on the last game that the women's team had. I was very much looking forward to that game, but now I'm legit nervous. So I guess we'll see how they bounce back.
I know a lot more questions after last week. So
yes,
I guess we'll find out. We'll find out at least a little bit Friday night. And this is even farther down the road, but next Monday it's even more interesting as there's a men's game in the afternoon. They play Kansas in Las Vegas, the men do. That broadcast will end at around 6:00, and then I've got a women's game at 9:00 that night. What we're going to do, there won't be a radio show, but if you go to either the Irish Breakdown YouTube channel or the Sports Radio WSBT YouTube channel, we will have a live show there from 5 to 6 next Monday. We'll have to tweet that out and all that kind of stuff and remind people, but just so you can kind of log that in the back of your minds. So
I need to log it in the back of my mind because, I got to be ready to go.
Notre Dame Syracuse, Saturday, 3:30. It's senior day, and we've got the call here on Sports Radio WSBT. The game day show live from 11 to 2:30 at the Linebacker. Tim, Eric, and Tyler will be there. They'll have great guests along with them as well for the game day show at the Linebacker. Well, Notre Dame comes out number 9. They hold tight at number 9 in this week's rankings, Vince. And we spent some time this week talking about where were they going to be, especially after Oklahoma knocked off Alabama. There was at least some concern, I think more from me and some other people as well, but like in terms of like just on this show, I was the one who was most concerned, I think, that Alabama would stay ahead of Notre Dame and Oklahoma would also be there and Notre Dame might get pushed down to number 10. But as it turned out, they hold tight at number 9. And other than the top 3 teams in the rankings, Notre Dame was the only other team that didn't go up or down. They held tight with the same spots as last week. Alabama fell 6 spots to number 10. Oklahoma up 3 spots to number 8. So, Vince, what does this number 9 ranking that Notre Dame has for a second consecutive week now tell you?
It tells me that they are about as close to a lock to get into the playoff as you can be, because there's a lot of buffer at that 9 spot.
Mm-hmm.
If they were in that 10 spot, now you're like 1 spot away from being edged out. You know what I mean? But if you're at 9, you've got a great opportunity to hang tight right there. And if another team jumps you, then you've got that buffer spot. So I'm feeling very good about Notre Dame's spot right now. And, the teams ahead of Notre Dame, they've got some tough games ahead of them. You know what I mean? And I'm not referring to the conference championship games, because that will change some rankings. No one will fall out, I wouldn't think, based on the championship games, but they do reorder, the ranking a little bit. They jostled them around a little bit at that point, but they got to get through these next 2 weeks. And like I said, there are some teams like Oregon, for example, have some tough games ahead of them. There's some interesting games. And so Notre Dame just needs to sit pretty, take care of business, obviously, over the next 2 weeks. But I really like their spot at 9. I feel very comfortable at 9, because it would be great if they hosted, because that was amazing last year. That was what a great atmosphere, when they hosted IU and all the things. It was great. At this point, I just
get in right now.
Just get in.
Exactly. You're not going to host every year. Like you said, it'd be great if you did. But this number 9 ranking tells me, one, the committee really still likes and respects Notre Dame. They like what they're doing. And we'll hear some of the comments from the new CFP committee chair, Hunter Yuracheck, who took over for Mac Rhodes.
Nailed it, by the way.
This selection show. And he talked to Reese Davis at the end of the ESPN selection show specific about the Miami thing. And so, we will we'll hear some of those comments in a minute. But this number 9 ranking is so important, and we talked about this on last night's show. Jesse and I did. If they were to hold at number 9, my feeling going forward was a heck of a lot better than at number 10, because if they're in that 10 spot and you've got Miami starting to breathe down their neck, and you've also got the possibility of BYU coming on, like if BYU is able to turn around and beat Texas Tech in that Big 12 championship game, they're not leaving Texas Tech out, like if Texas Tech were to lose. So that's like a bid stealer there. So Notre Dame in this number 9 spot, like my confidence in them making the playoff now by holding on at number 9 is like 9.99, I think, at this point. It just tells me like this is a real safety net type spot for them because of what happens with that group of 5 and the potential as well for a Miami team sneaking up and maybe grabbing an at-large bidder. Like I said, Texas Tech or BYU, it would be Texas Tech getting an at-large between the two, if BYU were to win that game. But 2 Big 12 teams, basically. So that number 9 spot is crucial. This tells me as long as Notre Dame takes care of business these next couple of games, these last 2 games, lays no eggs, they are in the college football playoff. You're muted.
Yeah, my bad. There are doomsday scenarios, obviously, where, if 17 of these different things happen, then Notre Dame could get bumped out, that kind of. But unless you are just an absolute masochist, why would you even think about those kinds of things? Like, let's think realistically, and realistically, Notre Dame's in. You know what I mean? Because, yes, there's going to be some things that fall and things that happen that people are not expecting and all of those different things. But the schedule of events that would have to take place for Notre Dame to get bumped out is very long right now. It's almost as long as the events that would have to take place for Miami to make it into the ACC championship game. There's like 8 things that have to happen for Miami to get into the ACC championship. What I think is the funniest thing of all of this, because, of course, Twitter is on fire again. You got Miami people out there and we're going to talk about all that. But now we got Alabama people mad at Notre Dame too, because
this is what I predicted last night.
Hilarious.
What's the next fan base that's going to come after Notre Dame? And it was going to be, most likely Alabama if Notre Dame was ranked ahead of them. And on cue, here they come, and they've got the Paul Feinbaums of the world. And I guess I don't care what any of the, the talking heads have to say, because they all, have their own self-righteousness and their own interests and all this. And, look, like you can look at it at tons of metrics, and metrics come into play in all this. Like I just saw Brian Driscoll tweet something, like all the like stats, yards per game, yards per
All of
attempt,
it.
both offense, defense. He rattled off 16 statistical categories, and Notre Dame is ahead of Alabama in 11 of the 16. You know, and you know, I get it. Alabama's probably got a couple better wins than Notre Dame, but they also don't have, or they also have a bad loss, and that's to Florida State. And you know, the committee talked about that because, like, you know, again, Hunter Yuracheck, there was a conference call with the media that, you know, that wasn't broadcast, but he was asked a few different, as you can imagine, he was asked some different questions about Notre Dame and Alabama and Oklahoma. And here's, speaking about Notre Dame and Alabama, I'll just read this quote that Hunter Yurchek, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee chair, said, quote, "Really, where you break these teams down in the comparison, Notre Dame and Alabama, Notre Dame has losses to two teams that are within the top 13, a 3-point loss against Miami to start the season, then a 1-point loss versus Texas A&M. Alabama actually has a 2-point loss at home last week against Oklahoma, but they had that loss at the beginning of the season, 31-17 at Florida State, a team that's now 5-5. Florida State was up in that game 24-7. They held Alabama to less than 100 yards rushing in that game. That was really a sign of some of the struggles Alabama was going to have rushing the ball," end quote. And that, again, is from Hunter Yurchek. You know, so again, it's like they're not just looking at wins and losses. They're looking at wins and losses, but they're also looking at how these teams play the game. And they feel like when you watch Notre Dame and you watch Alabama, Notre Dame is at least slightly better. I mean, we're talking about one ranking spot, obviously, and they feel like Notre Dame is better than Alabama in you know, like, yeah, eye test does matter. I know that ticks a lot of people off, but eye test does matter as well.
Well, and, you know, it is one spot right now, and Alabama, you know, can win out, and maybe they have an opportunity to jump Notre Dame at that point, or, you know, whatever the case may be. You got to win the games that are in front of you, and Alabama didn't win against Oklahoma. They dropped the ball 2 years in a row now against a team that they should have beaten. That's on you.
Well, you know,
that's
and the other part of this, the other part of this that nobody's talking about with Alabama is because of the fact that, you know, unless some unusual things happen, like BYU beating Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game, and the potential of the ACC getting 2 bids, depending on how far Miami can come up. But as of right now, there are 5 SEC teams. And, you know, with Alabama being the 5th, there are 5 SEC teams that are slated to make the field. And I don't think people are talking about, you know, like how many more SEC teams do you need? You know, I realize they're right on the cusp, but Alabama's the 5th SEC team at this point. So it's kind of hard to feel sorry for them or any other SEC team that is sitting in that 5 spot right now.
What I think the scenario of all the scenarios that are out there, the scenario that I want the most right now, I got to tell you, is I want Miami to jump up to like 11. I want them to be the 11 seed
and then get left out.
And then the ACC champion, that somebody from their own league who actually made it to the championship game wins that game, bumps them out. And they're the 11 seed now, and Miami's at home watching the games. That's what I want to happen.
And that's the other thing, Vince, because all these conference people want to tell you about, oh, you got to be in a conference and how important it is to be in a conference. Miami's the 5th place team in the ACC right now. So how are we supposed to feel? How's anyone supposed to feel sorry for the 5th place team in a conference that's not even looking at getting it its own conference championship game, when all they do is trumpet how much conference championship game mean? How are we supposed to feel sorry for them? Like it's their own fault. They've lost 2 conference games. And as any of these conference people will tell you, oh, those conference games matter. I'm sorry, you're in 5th place. You've dug yourself your own hole.
And the ACC continues to push this Miami narrative. Why don't you push the teams that are actually have the potential to win your league? Because Miami's not going to win your league. Why aren't you pushing Georgia Tech? Why aren't you pushing Virginia? Why aren't you pushing Pitt? Like,
it's all because of the head-to-head. It's
hilarious, and
it's all because of that one game.
And
even though there are other head-to-heads, right? As we've talked about, Miami lost to Louisville, a team that's are they still in front of them right now, or did Louisville fall behind them? I can't even remember.
Yeah, they're behind them. They're not even ranked anymore, Louisville.
Well, I meant in the conference standings. I'm not talking about.
Gotcha.
I'm just talking about conference standings because, again, conference standings, Vince, they're in a conference. It matters.
My bad. You're
they're
right.
2 spots behind them, though. So
I just think I think it's hilarious that the ACC, what they're doing and where their priorities are with who they're pushing and who they're dragging through the mud. Like, do you realize how unintelligent it is to drag Notre Dame through the mud with what they've done for your conference? Like, is that really is that really what you want? Is that really how you want to operate right now? Like, that makes zero sense to me. 0 sense. And that's not even being like a Notre Dame person. That's like, let's look at the facts about how Notre Dame has kept the ACC afloat this entire time and how Notre Dame got the ACC to play during the COVID season and all of these different things that Notre Dame has done for the ACC.
Hold your conference up. That's right.
And you're going to drag them through the mud like that? Like, that's just not a smart play, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree with Outbound. I don't think BYU is beating Texas Tech, but there will most likely be a rematch. And so there sure. At least in theory, there's a possibility. Like no one really thought that Penn State was going to play with Oregon in the Big Ten championship game last year, but that obviously, worked out pretty well. Penn State at least gave them a game, and I think that made an impression. Radar in the YouTube chat is asking, what do you see as a number for the loser of the Ohio State-Indiana Conference championship game? I mean, really, I think that if the top 4 teams go into their conference championship games, there are 3 unbeaten teams, obviously, right now: Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, and then you've got Texas A&M 3rd and Georgia 4th. So you're looking at. Basically, it's going to be seeding. I think that those are still going to be 1 through 4 seeds. Like if Indiana beats Ohio State, they'll probably be the number 1 seed unless Texas A&M runs the table in the SEC. So like if Texas A&M and Indiana both win, they're probably going to be 1, 2, and then it'll be Ohio State and Georgia right after them, for the top 4 seeds, don't you think?
Depends on how the game goes. If one blows somebody out.
I mean, if there's a blowout, and then
that's the only thing. I mean, I could see, because right now it's obviously Georgia and Texas A&M. If Georgia loses that game, they're not going to get the bye. They'll drop out of the top 4, that kind of a thing. It's going to be hard to drop IU or Ohio State out of the bye 4. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on how that game goes. Now, if it's a blowout, if it's like a 3-touchdown win for either team, I could see the other one dropping out of the bye level and then hosting a game. But they won't drop beyond hosting. I don't see that being the case.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. So let's get to Miami here. They rose up 2 spots to number 15. As of now, they would be in the playoffs because they're the highest ranked ACC team. But again, they're not.
They're a placeholder.
Right.
They are a placeholder because they're not going to win the conference.
Right.
And so,
like so many different things have to go right for them to get into the conference.
It's seriously like 8 different things, Sean. I don't know if you've actually looked it up, but
I have
8 different things. It's ridiculous.
I didn't bother listing out what all the 8 things are because there are 8 different.
It's so many things, but like everybody was freaking out because why is Miami on the 11 line and all of those things? They're not. They just happen to be the highest ranked ACC team. They're a placeholder. They are. You might as well just put ACC there instead of Miami, because Miami is going to have to get into the top 10 in order to get into the playoffs.
And again, that's why it is so important that Notre Dame is sitting at number 9 right now, because the committee is doing this in tiers of 6 when they do their they evaluate the teams in tiers of 6 teams each. So it's 1 through 6, then it's 7 through 12. So if Miami gets into the top 12, then now that head-to-head probably comes more into play with Notre Dame. We've got Hunter Yuracheck, his comments on that from last night. We're going to go ahead and take a break. There's some more college football playoff mailbag questions in, and there's some other mailbag questions we're going to get to as we keep this conversation going. We will hear those comments from Hunter Yuracheck, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee chair, right after we take a break. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com continues. I'm Sean Stiers along with Vince D'Addario. Notre Dame football mailbag day. And most of the questions, as you would imagine, are about college football playoff because we started off talking about college football playoff. So we're going to get to some of those here in a minute. I want to first go ahead and play the comment from the selection show last night on ESPN from Arkansas Athletic Director Hunter Yuracheck, who took over as the new selection committee chair this week after Baylor's Mack Rhodes stepped down last week. And I saw a question from Salty Virginia Peanuts in the chat there about why the change. I have they never really said exactly what happened with Mack Rhodes. Something happened at Baylor because there were some major things. I believe he stepped down there at Baylor as well. But in any case, after the rankings, go ahead.
I was going to say, could it be because he was a terrible interview? I mean, horrible answers the first couple weeks, man. Horrible answers. And Yuracheck just absolutely knocked it out of the park, by the way.
That's so too.
My goodness.
He just came bringing heat. Yeah.
He knew his football. He knows football. And that, obviously, to be on this committee, that's important.
Well, and again, I read that quote from him before, and there's a lot of different, he's just rattling off the top of his head, all these different, this is why it's all football stuff.
Yes. And he gives reasoned answers for why the rankings are the way they are. And he's basically just echoing what we've been trying to tell people all along. And the national people just don't pay attention.
They don't want to hear it.
They don't want to hear it.
And that's fine. If you're a Notre Dame fan, don't even why even bother engaging?
Exactly.
You've got what you want. Who even cares? Why even bother with the arguments at this
Stay
point?
off social media. It's just going to tick you off, and you're going to say something you regret.
I know.
So
as of right now, again, based on Notre Dame's number 9 ranking, I feel very, very confident that if they win these next 2 games, the way they're supposed to win these next 2 games, they're going to be in, and it's not going to matter. So,
correct.
But here is ESPN's Reese Davis asking Hunter Yuracheck, the selection committee chair, about the Notre Dame-Miami comparison after the rankings were announced last night.
Miami, based on the rankings to be in the field, we know they have to win the ACC to get in. How close is Miami and Notre Dame in terms of evaluation within the room?
I think when you look, Reese, at Notre Dame and Miami, we really compare the losses of those 2 teams. Miami has lost to 2 unranked teams. Notre Dame has lost to 2 teams that are ranked in our top 13. And so we really haven't compared those 2 teams. They haven't been in similar comparative pools to date. But Miami is creeping up into that range where they will be compared to Notre Dame if something happens above them.
Okay, you guys have talked about putting teams in tiers. Not asking you to speculate, but just from a philosophical standpoint, once a team is in the same tier, if Notre Dame and Miami were in the same tier, or any 2 teams you played, how would you describe the weight that head-to-head matchups carry when the evaluation process starts?
Well, I think you look at what happened this week when we compared Alabama and Oklahoma in a similar spot where 8, 9, and 10, where we were comparing those teams. Oklahoma obviously got the nod based on their 2-point win at Oklahoma. So if Miami and Notre Dame are in a comparable tier, comparable range, the head-to-head will be a significant data point that we will use.
All right, so there you go. If they get a little bit closer, if I can get this. What's going on here? Okay, here we go. Just pushing the wrong button to get that out of the screen. If they get closer and they get into the same tier, then maybe it becomes a little bit dicier for Notre Dame. But in that follow-up last night in the conference call that Hunter Yuracheck, who you just heard from right there, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee chair, basically says Miami needs to keep winning and then hope for some things to fall their way in front of them. So, again, Notre Dame is in a much better spot right now because of the way they are playing right now. 2 close losses to 2 good teams at the beginning of the season. Miami later in the season, 2 losses to unranked teams. The committee has noted that. And in addition to those factors, the way they are playing football right now matters. That matters.
Yeah.
How you were playing football.
And he makes that very, very clear. And he also makes it very clear that they're not even comparing Miami to Notre Dame right now because they're not in the same tier. if that ever happens and they're in the same tier because some things fell a certain way, because everybody seems to forget that Utah, BYU, and Alabama are in between Notre Dame and Miami. Like, Miami still has to jump those teams as well. You know, it's not just a Miami Notre Dame question.
And I think that's actually good for Notre Dame as well, the fact
Absolutely.
that Alabama is there, because I think that most people would probably tell you that Alabama is a better team than Miami right now.
For sure. And so, you know, if all other things are equal, then that becomes a deciding factor. And I have no problem with that if that's the case. But all things are not equal right now. And so it's not a deciding factor. Someday that'll happen, potentially. And if it does, then Notre Dame fans, you take your medicine because you lost in that game. And that it is what it is. But I'm still confident that, well, first of all, let me just say this. I would love to play Miami. So that would be great. If they both end up in like the 8-9 game, like bring it on. That would be great. And especially if Notre Dame's 8 and Miami's 9, that would be awesome, because that means they come up to Notre Dame in December. But at the same time, I'm still confident Notre Dame is going to get in. At this point, I don't care if Miami gets in or not. I still think it would be funny if they were on the 11 line and got bumped out by the ACC champ.
I do too. But in fairness, as David says in the YouTube chat, if the roles were reversed, Notre Dame fans would be crying just like Miami and Alabama fans. There's no doubt about that. I mean, whoever's on the short end is going to be mad about it. You know,
absolutely, 100%. Look, I can make a very strong case that Notre Dame should be ahead of Oregon, but I'm not out there whining about it. You know what I mean? Like, there's no point. Just be happy with where you are. And right now, Notre Dame's in a good spot. Miami put themselves in this position by losing 2 out of 3 in
unranked teams.
Yeah, unranked teams.
Their losses to unranked teams. That's
you can't do that.
Yeah, and they're in your conference, as we said. They're in 5th place in their own conference right now.
Exactly.
They might be better than some of those other teams in front of them, but they lost to 2 teams that they were supposed to beat, and that's why they find themselves in the situation they're in right now. If they had taken care of their own business, it even only lost 1 of those games,
they'd be ahead of Notre Dame.
Ranked, probably 7th or 8th right now.
100%, they'd be ahead of Notre Dame. 100%. But you can't lose those 2 games when you did.
Right.
And you know, you can be mad, Miami fans. That's fine. But you're 5th in your own conference that you decided to join because you failed at being an independent. That's not our fault at Notre Dame. That's not anybody else's fault. You failed. So you jumped into the Big East, and then you jumped into the ACC, I believe was the order. And now you're at the mercy of your own conference.
David says this is his major issue with college football, having a committee decide who makes the playoffs is Bush League. Well, I mean, there's a selection committee when it comes to like NCAA basketball tournaments and baseball tournaments and softball tournaments as well. You know, like
there's too many teams to just base it on record. There's 130 plus teams.
Right, because teams aren't playing. Teams even in their own conferences are not playing comparable schedules, as we've talked about a million times. That's why you've got to have somebody do it. It's either that
or computers.
Or go back to the computer.
I mean, raise your hand if you want the BCS back. I do not. So I would rather have at least a room full of humans using different criteria to put it together. And here's the other thing. At the end of the day, Sean, what are the odds that the 10, 11, 12 seed are going to win the national championship? Like, that's the other piece of it for me. You know, like you can say you're in. It's like all the bubble teams that are upset that they don't get into the NCAA tournament for basketball. Like, you're probably not going to win the title being on the bubble, you know, whether you got in or whether you didn't. You just want to say you got in.
But there's still a big difference in stature between making the playoff field,
no doubt,
going to, you know, the Outback Bowl or whatever. I didn't even know that there is an Outback Bowl anymore, the Pop-Tarts Bowl.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
Everybody loves Mr. Pop-Tart jumping in and doing his dance and all that stuff. But do you really want to be at the Pop-Tart Bowl?
No.
Probably not. Probably not. Price 29 says, is there a particular reason the seeding is the way it is? Why do seeds 5-12 play the number 4 seed and not the number 1 seed? Well, that's because that's how brackets have been formulated since forever that I know. That, like, again, like look at the basketball tournaments. In the second round, the number 1 seed always plays the 8-9 winner.
The lowest
round
number. I mean, is there a chance, I guess, that the 12 beats the 5? I guess. But that's going to be the group of 6 person against the number 5 team in the country. Right. Probably not going to happen. And so the 5 is not going to play the 1. Like, that's not how that's going to work. That's not
Right.
fair to the number 1
because
seed.
they're closer to the 4 seed, and yeah, so
right.
like
There's a benefit to being the number 1 seed. You play the lowest seed of the first round.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, unless the 12 seed would upset, then you'd have to reseed.
Then
you'd
reseed,
not the way they do brackets.
Exactly.
Right.
That's 100% accurate. Yeah.
Right. Salty wants to know which first-round game you would most like to see for Notre Dame as the host. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to happen there.
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, like, just hosting a game would be a major accomplishment at this point, even though you only have to move up 1 spot to get there. But I think it'd be kind of fun to host Alabama, a cold weather game against Alabama, bring them up from the South in the first round. I think that'd be fun.
I think anybody south of the Mason-Dixon line would be just fine for me. You know what I mean? Bring a Southern team up here. I mean, last year they got IU from Bloomington. That doesn't really do it for me as far as that part is concerned. But, I mean, if you look at, you know, the teams that are in contention to be in that spot, Ole Miss, Texas Tech, you know, Georgia, Alabama, Oklahoma, like, bring any of those teams up. Miami, right? Bring any of those teams up to Notre Dame. I'd be plenty happy about that. Plenty happy. Ohio State and IU, not so much.
Salty also asks, which is the most likely scenario in which Notre Dame moves forward in the rankings? Like, if USC beats Oregon,
that's it right there.
That's like, as of right now, that's probably Notre Dame's best chance to move up. I'm not sure, like, if this is, again, if BYU were to knock off Texas Tech, I'm not sure exactly what that does, you know, like how much that would help Notre Dame, but it feels like the most likely scenario right now is if Oregon loses to USC, then I think Notre Dame has their chance to move up a spot. But they're kind of, just because of the way things stack up, barring some upsets like that, they're kind of pretty close to what their ceiling could end up being at this point.
Yeah, Oregon losing, I think, is the best bet right now. So everybody's a Trojan fan this weekend, and that way, because again, if Oregon loses, you might as well just lock it down that Notre Dame's going to get in. Whether they're a host or whether they're not a host or whatever remains to be seen, but you could pretty much lock it in that they're going to be playing on that first weekend.
Mark in the YouTube chat says, do you think with the conferences having so many teams, the 2-win team chaos for college football will be a regular occurrence? I think he might mean like 2-loss.
2-loss. Yeah, I think that's what he meant. And I think he's absolutely accurate. I think there's going to be a lot of wailing and gnashing of teeth over 2-loss teams. I think it's going to be very difficult, and it'll happen eventually. I think it's very difficult for a 3-loss team to get in. I don't see that happening this year. I think the best 3-loss teams, probably Texas. They're all the way down at 17. So the chance of them jumping up are pretty slim. So I think you're going to be discussing 2-loss teams for pretty much the last half, more or less, of the bracket, I think, when it's all said and done. So, yeah, I think that's going to be the discussion every year, Mark.
Yeah. Robin says Oklahoma could lose to Missouri. I would feel a lot better if Bo Pribula was still playing for Missouri, just like with the quarterback they have right now. I'm not confident in that because Oklahoma's defense is so good, and I just don't think Missouri's offense is anywhere close to what they were when Pribula was healthy. But theoretically, it's out there. Yeah, and they also play LSU.
I think they got a better shot of losing to LSU than they do of losing to Missouri, personally.
Yeah.
But both of those are home games for Oklahoma, too. So, you know, they get to defend their home field in the last 2 games of the season.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I mean, so there are some opportunities, but I think it's like the best case, I think, like, obviously, if either Oregon or Oklahoma loses, that's going to help Notre Dame move up.
Oh, yeah.
And Oklahoma does have 2 tougher games to close things out.
And Oregon has 2 tough games, too.
Oregon still has Washington as well, and I wouldn't call that a
Washington at home. And that's where they're really good. So you've got USC and Washington. That might be the toughest 2-game schedule the rest of the way, would be Oregon for me. So probably so.
You know, again, Oklahoma has both Missouri and LSU, but like, so I'd probably put that right after.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But
I think that's fair.
Yeah. And somebody said, you know, like, what was it? BYU's not beating Texas Tech. Yeah. DJ said BYU can't beat Texas Tech, so that's moot. I tend to agree, but they are most likely going to play, barring some kind of, so it's at least a possibility, and crazier things have happened. But I was completely, just probably like everybody else, completely unimpressed with BYU's offense. Game.
And you probably actually, if you're a Notre Dame fan, want to root for Texas Tech, I would imagine, because then that sends BYU even further behind you.
Farther back. But it also moves Miami up potentially. So
that's fair too. No, that's a good point. Again, I want Miami in that 11 slot.
But again, this is why Notre Dame being 9th and not 10th matters so much.
Absolutely. Yes.
Sitting in this 9 spot with 3 spots behind them, because we know an ACC team and a group of 5 team is going to gobble up 2 of those spots. So that only leaves one other at-large bid there,
right,
in that 10, 11, 12 range. And so the fact that Notre Dame is sitting at number 9 and not number 10, is a huge safety spot for the Irish now. And it's why I feel so confident that as long as they take care of business, they're fine. They're going to be in.
Yep. Just like I said, a lot of things have to happen for that not to be the case. And don't worry yourself, that you're not sleeping at night of all of those things happening, that Notre Dame gets pushed out. Like, don't do that to yourself. Just enjoy college football. Just enjoy it.
Listen to Vince with all that optimism.
I'm telling you. And you'll have plenty of time to enjoy it, not this weekend, but next weekend, as you wait for Notre Dame to kick off at 10:30.
Oh, man.
Sean,
I was just thinking today, like, what am I going to do with myself during that day?
Sean, seriously, I was getting ready for dinner last night at 5:30, and I was looking outside. It's dark out already, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, in a week and a half, it'll still be 5 hours until kickoff. I immediately got tired. I was like, I want to go to bed now. Like, it's just 10:30.
I know. People were telling us the other day to quit whining about it. They're all, the players are young and blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, well, the players might be
they
young.
Are.
People trying to watch these games are not all young. I'll tell you that much.
That's what I'm saying. And people
no one is used to staying up. Like, even the World Series starts before 8:30. Man, come on.
That's 2 hours later, man. 10:30.
Joe says take a long nap at 5:30. Are you a napper? Like, can you get good naps in?
I could literally fall asleep standing up. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I wish I could nap better. Like, my problem is when I try, that's when it's like it's just not happening.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. All right, we've got more mailbag questions coming up. Short show tonight. Will be done by 6:26 because we've got Notre Dame men's basketball coming up. But if you're watching live in the YouTube right now, you can get in your mailbag questions. We'll be answering more questions about the college football playoff rankings and more. I've got some questions that we've got stacked up from earlier today that have been submitted in the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge. So we've got those on the way with Vince D'Addario, Sean Steiners, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Budweiser's weekday sports beat with IrishBreakdown.com with Vince D'Addario, Sean Stiers. Glad to have you with us here today. We've got a little bit more than a half an hour left before men's basketball tonight. Host Bellarmine.
Is that how you pronounce it? I always thought it was mean.
I don't know, man.
It's just a question.
Bellarmine?
I don't know.
Honestly, you don't hear it pronounced very often.
This is true. That is a solid.
We'll find out when Simeone takes the air here.
He's a pro.
Yeah, he is. He's the one that's got to say it, not us.
This is true.
All right, it's mailbag night. We've been talking some college football playoff, and we've answered a lot of questions from the mailbag about the playoff, and we'll get back to some of them here in a little bit as well. Jay Sum says in the YouTube chat, everyone's up in arms with the committee putting Notre Dame over Alabama. No one brings up the fact that the coaches poll has them over Bama too. You know, the actual coaches of all of these teams. And so does the Associated Press for that matter. You know, so like, even though you've got all these people in the media complaining about it right now, both the Associated Press and the coaches polls also have Notre Dame at number 9, one spot ahead of Alabama. So
I mean, yeah, I was hoping that the playoff rankings were going to mirror, you know, the rankings of the AP and the coaches, and they pretty much did. So, you know, I don't. It's just it's clickbait, everybody. Like, don't fall for the clickbait. That's what everybody wants to talk about. Miami, Notre Dame, over and over, but they ignore pretty much every other analytic that you can come up with. That's the problem.
Yeah, that is the problem. And there are a lot of other analytics that has Notre Dame just, you know, again, like it was CJ Carr's first ever game. And I think that is getting left out of first game, road game, like who he is now, who Notre Dame is as a team now, completely different than that team. And,
correct.
You know, and again, there is precedent for head-to-head not mattering nearly as much as everyone is making it out to mean right now. You don't have to go that far back.
Yep.
Okay. This one is from Wade Garrett. Any reason for the lack of production from Jadarian Price over the last 3 games? What would you do to ramp him up going into the playoffs, assuming Notre Dame makes it?
I have zero proof that this is accurate, but right now it's kind of a run with the hot hand kind of a situation. I mean, Jeremiah Love is having a pretty good last few games, and it's not like they haven't been playing Jadarian Price, but he hasn't had a lot of success, and they've been going back to Jeremiah Love pretty quickly. And Jeremiah Love, they are like, it's not the forefront of what they're doing, trying to get him a Heisman, you know, or trying to get him invited to New York or anything like that. But he is putting up the numbers right now, and you go with the hot hand, and he's had that hot hand. Jadarian Price will be just fine, and he'll have a game where he goes out and does his thing. He'll be fine. But right now, I think Jeremiah Love's the hot hand.
And I mean, when I saw this question, I thought, you know, because I've kind of been wondering the same thing, and just like watching the games, it does feel like less usage of Jadarian Price. But like, look at Pittsburgh last week as an example. The first series that Price came in, I think they went pass, and then they ended up punting, you know, and it's like, so Price is out there blocking. There's nothing he can do about that. And then you go back and look at his carries per game. They're a little bit down, you know, like he had some 12 and 13 carry games earlier this season. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you look at these last 3 games, 9 carries, 12 yards, 10 carries, 47 yards, 8 carries, 21 yards. So he has had some opportunities.
Yeah.
It's just not quite producing the way he was earlier in the season when he was, you know, like consistently at around 5.5, 6.5 yards per carry in a lot of these games. So he's, you know, so it's like there's still, the rotation is not that much different. I think the biggest thing for him is he's just kind of get back on his track and get himself going when he gets those opportunities. If he breaks one of those off, it looks a lot different.
Absolutely correct. Yes, absolutely.
Domer Grizz on 4th and goal from the inches line. I thought for sure they just needed a handoff to Love and have him dive over the pile. Why don't we see as many teams do that these days? It was a staple in the 80s and 90s. Our linebackers just better at defending it or does it have more to do with formation, shotgun, no fullback, etc.? What do you think about that? Like, you got springy legs in Jeremiah Love. Should he be jumping up over the pile a little bit more from the goal line?
I would say the comparison to the 80s and 90s is fantastic, because the athletes that are on the field now compared to the athletes that were on the field in the 80s and 90s are not even comparable. And so you're running into a situation there with all of those bodies now in 2025 that's different than it was in the 80s and 90s. That's the best way I could describe it. Now, do I still think that they should hand off on a couple inch line? Yes, I do. I still think that they should do that.
If you have the offensive line and the running backs that you think you have, there's no reason you should be throwing on the inches line inside the 1 yard line. You should be able to muscle your way into the end zone.
But the whole jumping over the top, like, you've got some pretty athletic linebackers on the other side of the football. They can meet you in the air.
But this is also why if you went with 21 personnel, or two running backs, whichever other grouping that you want to have with the tight end, and maybe you fake it to a leaping Jeremiah Love, and then you still have Jadarian Price as an option to get.
Sure. Oh, like I said, offensive coordinators, and you can put anybody in there, but offensive coordinators in general tend to overthink things at times.
I think so as well.
It's okay to just slam it up in there. And get the couple inches.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also from Domer Grizz, how difficult will it be for guys like Greathouse, Shrouth, and even Rubio, who've missed significant time, to jump back in for the playoffs? We saw it with Jagisaw last year, but is that normal, or is he a freak? I worry about rust and chemistry.
I wouldn't worry about that stuff with those particular guys. You don't need chemistry on the defensive line, number one. And number two, Billy Shrouth is basically a captain on that offensive line. There's not going to be any rust there. He'll be just fine.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry about it. And yes, Charles Jagisaw is a beast and a freak, or whatever the name.
He is a beast, and
he's all of those things.
Yeah, and for Greathouse, assuming he's able to practice once December, rolls around, if they are going to rest him and all that kind of stuff, and get him healthy, he's going to have multiple weeks to be out there practicing and getting whatever chemistry and stuff like that. So I don't worry about it. I think if anything, like especially with Greathouse, if he's able to get his legs, that leg specifically, healthy, I think that he can be a huge factor for Notre Dame. So with just all three of those guys with the kind of talent that they have. Joe asks, who would you rather have Notre Dame play in the playoffs, Texas A&M or Miami, and why?
Oh, it's Miami. Because I am sick and tired of hearing them talk. Like, it's a completely spiteful, petty reason. I think Notre Dame could win both of those games based on what I saw the first two games of the season, but I would much rather shut up Miami fans. So that's my answer.
Yeah. And again, I think that especially having CJ Carr playing at the level that he is playing at right now, and like when you think about the game plan that they had with all those screen passes, and remember all the RPO stuff, like they called that game specifically to protect CJ Carr, to make it so that, okay, it's RPO, you make the read, and if the box or the defender is in your favor, you go with that. And, Marcus Freeman said afterwards, probably should have just handed the ball off a little bit more. And obviously that's, because the box was telling him throw the ball. And that's why he kept throwing so much. And there wasn't as much Jeremiah Love or Jadarian Price. So I think that we would see a completely different game plan offensively from Notre Dame. CJ Carr is a completely different quarterback right now. And I'd love to see that rematch between Notre Dame and Miami. I'm sure Miami would love to see it as well, but from a Notre Dame perspective, I would love to see that rematch. That's who I would rather see right now.
Yeah.
But like you, Vince, I also feel confident that, look, both of those games came right down to the wire, like end of the game, right? So it's not like either one of those teams dominated Notre Dame. You're talking
Don't tell that to Miami fans, Sean.
I know.
Because they dominate. If you watch that game, Miami dominated it the entire time. It did not take an amazing one-handed catch at the goal line to win that game, okay?
Right.
They dominated it.
Exactly. And that's another thing, too. The way Notre Dame's defense is playing, I don't think that they would defend Miami in the same way.
Agreed.
Let's take a top of the hour break. This will be our last break, and then we will sail to the end of the show in the 6 o'clock hour with Notre Dame men's basketball coming up here in a little bit. We've got more mailbag questions coming up, some great ones so far. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. We've got Notre Dame men's basketball coming up here in just a few minutes. I can't even do the math off the top of my head right now. Vince Dario, Sean's Tires, Notre Dame football mailbag night on Budweiser's weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. I don't know what to do anymore, Vince.
Yeah. I don't know how you put together like a sizzle clip. That's what I'm struggling over here.
Sizzle clip.
Just airing my dirty laundry out there.
Something just happened in my headphones. Okay, I can't.
Oh boy,
I can't hear very well. Okay, here we go.
It's years in radio. You're going deaf, brother.
I know. Okay, so mailbag night. A lot of different questions. I just saw one. Okay, from Arrow Guy 173 in the YouTube chat. Do conference championship losses affect placement of a team in the playoff bracket? Like, what if Ohio State loses to Michigan and again in the Big Ten championship game? They would still be in the playoff, right?
Yes, they'd still be in the playoff, but they would drop.
Just that would.
I mean, and it depends on what your definition of significantly is. But if you lose to Michigan, who's I think where are they at? They are 18 right now, so it's a ranked team, and you lost to Michigan. You're going to fall obviously from 1 probably to 6 or 7 at that point, and then if you lose again to IU in the championship game, because I believe they would still be in, then you're probably going to drop to, I don't know, 8 or 9. And then, so you might, if you're an Ohio State fan, you lose those 2 games, you might be on the verge of not hosting anymore, but I would venture to think that they would still host. But it just all depends on how far they fall the first time, as to how far they would fall.
And that also, all of a sudden, Michigan gets a little bit more interesting, even though they've got a lot more room to make up. But sitting there at 18, number 18 right now, with 2 losses, if they were to upset the number 1 team in the country for a second straight year, Ohio State, that all of a sudden, that's probably going to move them up at least 5 or 6 spots, and they're going to be in the conversation all of a sudden.
They would move up. I don't think they get in at that point, because then they don't.
I don't either, but it at least gets a little more interesting.
They would wake up the sleeping bear of Michigan fans that we haven't heard all season. We would definitely hear them, but it would fall on deaf ears, except for Dave Portnoy. He's the only one that you would actually hear. But I don't think they get in at that point, especially because they don't have another game after that to make their point. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a one-off. It's not
going to get them into the Big Ten championship game.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So, for a super chat from Jimmy, what are the chances Jeremiah Love breaks the single season rushing yards record? I think it's pretty much a lock. It's a matter of when, not if.
What are the numbers? Because I don't honestly know the answer.
I don't have the exact number here off the top of I was looking at it earlier this week, and it's actually was going to be some kind of rapid fire question on tomorrow's show, but I think he is within. Let me see. I'm going to have to look this up. The record is 1,400 and something, Vegas Ferguson. So
okay, he's not there. He's like 11 or 12 right now, something along those lines.
11 or 12 what? 100 yards?
100 yards, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but he's got a legitimate chance to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he's got a little – Jeremiah Love right now has a little over 1,100 yards, and I don't – he's going to do it, okay? Like whether he they're going to play a 13th game of some kind, and – he's within 350 or something like that yards right now. So he's got 2 games to potentially get there, in the 12th game. But with a 13th game, it feels like he's pretty much a lock to break the record. So what are the odds he does it? I'd say 10 out of 10.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree.
I've got it on one of my I don't know.
It's all good. No, you're good.
All of it right now. So I should have looked it up because, I guess that super chat came in like right as we were coming back, so I didn't have a chance to look it all up. But yeah, he's got, as I think Stymie said, he's got 1135 right now, and the record is 1,400 and something by Vegas Ferguson. So he's okay. Scott says 1135 and counting, needs 200 in the first 3 quarters and 100 yards in the first half of Stanford. Oh, okay.
Because he's saying they're not going to play very long, which makes sense.
I'm saying the question is he going to get it in the next 2 games, or is it going to take him the first round of the playoff game to get there as well? That's kind of the question to me.
Right.
He's going to get it one way or another. Scott says, why isn't anyone complaining about their ranking focusing on 15 through 25? Teams like Missouri, Illinois, Tulane, etc. are being used to prop up Big Ten and SEC teams. Don't those rankings affect resumes a lot?
Yes, rankings affect resumes, no doubt about that. And that's why teams 15 through 25 are ranked, because they help make the case of teams 1 through 14. I mean, that's how the committee has always done it. They always use those teams. They use those teams to prop up or set up future games to, keep them there or create matchups, all of those different kinds of things. So that's basically what the last 10 teams are for. 100%.
Yes. And it's like Notre Dame beat Pittsburgh last week when they were ranked, and then you beat them and now they're knocked out of the rankings. And that's kind of, like with Iowa as another example, like Iowa gets, like they're in one week and then they lose and then they get bounced right out. And that's kind of what I was saying last night. It's like those teams at the end of the rankings, like when you get into that 17, 18, 19 and down to 25, it's like a lot of those teams are basically in there by default. Somebody's got to be in there. And, it's like, okay, you're ranked, and then you lose a game and it's the next team up that ends up being in there. Go back to the Champions Lounge. PA Irish says, what do you make of the ACC conference going out of their way to take shots at Notre Dame on Twitter X? What, if anything, are you hearing from the Notre Dame community on how that is received? I haven't heard anything specific on that. But, I mean, it's basically the ACC is, it's like on the one hand, it's like you're taking a shot at one of your, biggest cash cows in a team, program like Notre Dame that props up your conference and your TV rights and, your TV entity. But at the same time, it's also in the ACC's interest, because if they can get 2 teams into the playoff, then that is more revenue that comes into the playoff. So it's obviously in their interest still to try to prop up a program like Miami to try to get them an at-large bid, because it's more money for them on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is it makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, and nobody from Notre Dame is going to talk about it to us, to the media, to the public, to the fans. I would venture to guess there is some back channeling happening, though, because if I'm Pete Bavacqua, I'm absolutely calling up the ACC and like, guys, what are you doing? Like, you're just embarrassing yourselves. Please stop.
Yeah.
And here's the number to Georgia Tech and Virginia and, and Pitt. Why don't you call them and let them know why you're trying to prop up the 5th place team and not any of them?
Right. And, look, the bottom line in all of this is just a couple of weeks ago, I was seeing stories about, like, oh, the ACC has invested all this money in their football programs and look what it's done for them. And, like my first reaction to that was, well, how about the fact that just like within all these expanded conferences, you have unbalanced schedules. Not everybody is playing each other. So it's a little bit of a mirage, because all the best teams aren't playing each other to begin with. So that by nature is going to mean that you're going to have teams with more wins, because the best teams aren't all playing each other. And then just a week or two later, boom, 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 they all still start getting picked off. And all of a sudden they've all got all these losses. So just 3 weeks ago, it was looking like the ACC could get as many as 3 teams in the college football playoff. But then all these teams lose some games, and look where they are now. So they've got nobody to blame but themselves for the fact that you're not going to get an at-large team unless Miami, keeps making a case for itself. But again, Miami's the 5th place team in their own conference.
Yeah.
Right now. So how can you feel sorry for that if they end up getting left out?
Exactly correct. Exactly correct. Like I said it in the first hour. I'll say it again. I want them on that 11 line so they get bumped by the ACC champion. That's what I want.
ND Forever 70, and there are a lot of people who feel this way, but ND Forever 72 says Bavacqua needs to say goodbye to this worthless ACC deal. But then what? So Where are you going to go? Are you going to go to the Big 12? Is that who you're going to align yourself with? And I mean, the Big 12 is taking shots as much as anybody at Notre Dame now.
And here's the other thing that people seem to forget. Notre Dame can't just walk away from the ACC. They're under contract for another 11 years.
Right.
With the ACC.
And you still need a place for all of your Olympic sports.
Correct.
And because of the fact of how fractured everything is becoming, and you have these expanded conferences, like the ACC or not, there's definitely pros and cons to it, but you're still getting 5 to 6 games a year out of this deal against Power 4 opponents. And I think that there is a lot of benefit to that. Just the fact that you've got Power 4 opponents that you're playing year in and year out.
Absolutely. I could very easily see, if this was to happen, right, 11 years from now, if this was to happen, I could see Notre Dame taking their Olympic sports to the Big East. I could see that happening. But then what does that mean for football?
Right.
Are you going to be a true independent with no affiliation whatsoever? Because right now, the 5 games that they get with the ACC does help them fill their schedule. There's no doubt about it.
It does become more difficult
to
fill that schedule out, especially if, I think that there are plenty of Big Ten teams, it feels like, who would be more than willing to start scheduling more annually. But at the same time, look at what's going on with USC right now. One of your longest rivals, and you're having an issue just keeping them on the schedule.
And so do I think Notre Dame could put together a schedule without an affiliation with the ACC? Absolutely. It's just a lot harder. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's a lot harder. And, sometimes it's okay to play a lower level ACC team, throughout the year. You don't want to have marquee games every single week. That's crazy. You don't want to do that. So, I mean, could they do it? Yes. I just don't know that it's a plausible scenario. That's all.
Thanks for the super chat, Lou Holtz, Thunder and Bolts. Bring on the disrespect. We're keeping the receipts and have all of our vengeance in this life or the next. Also, Narduzzi is a loser. That is all. Agree.
Little gladiator reference there. I like that.
I do too.
Yeah.
Quick Slant 1 says it's probably been discussed, but I'd like your opinion on playing Love and Price at the same time, especially in the red zone. We got a few questions here, Vince. I want to try to get in here at the end. We got about 7 minutes, so we'll kind of try to get through these fairly quickly here.
I think we'd all like to see both of them on the field at the same time. Bottom line, I would love to see it. Maybe they're holding on to it. Maybe it's just not something that they think is going to work. I don't know what the situation.
Jesse's theory, like with the short yardage goal line stuff, is they're saving the best stuff for the playoffs. So I don't know about that, but I definitely think, we haven't seen a lot of the 20, 21, 22, whatever type stuff. I feels like, especially in those short yardage situations, that there would be some benefit to getting them both on the field at the same time.
Yeah, agreed.
Ballpeen Shillelagh. Seems the majority of the national football media is willfully ignorant of the fact that teams change and develop throughout a season. This being the case, how should playoff teams be decided, in your opinion? Do you use the most recent team rankings when looking at early wins and losses, or what they were ranked at the time? With this in mind, how do you look at a game like Oregon versus Penn State?
Look, I think the way they're doing it makes a lot of sense. They are using all kinds of criteria. It's why Notre Dame's ahead of Miami.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just record-based. So I think that they are doing it right. They're doing it to the best of their ability right now to get the 11 plus 1 best teams in the country into the playoff. I think this is the best system that I think they're going to be able to come up with right now. I don't like auto bids. I don't like any of that other stuff. I just want in this case, 11 best teams plus the group of 6. I'm fine with whatever. I'm fine with the group of 6. But the best 11 teams, however you come up with that, I think they're doing a pretty good job of it. I like it.
One of the contradictions that the committee has is they are still giving Oregon a pretty good amount of weight for that win.
They are.
State, this came up last night. Well, it is still a tough place to play, as they brought up Indiana. Well, it's a team that went in the tank. So even though they were ranked at the time, I can't put a whole lot of weight in it. But to your point, as you said, they're using both the eye test, they're using how you're playing right now, and just not a win is a win and a loss is a loss. They're they're weighing a lot of different factors in this thing, and how you are playing football right now also matters. That is a big factor. So I think by and large, they're doing a pretty good job.
Yep.
Freeman Natty, do you think with the kicking game, we'll see an ultra aggressive fourth down strategy? Game circumstances matter, but in general, could you see us going for it on fourth and medium down near the red zone? What do you think about that?
Yep. I do. The fourth down and 5 from the 25-yard line in the last game pretty much told me everything I needed to know about where they are, at least at that game,
right,
with the kicking. That's an easy go for a field goal, and they didn't, and they still turned the ball over. They only got 4 yards. They needed 5, but that kind of told me where they're at. They're fine with him kicking PATs. Field goals, I think, is another story right now.
Yeah, I think that they've got to, like I was saying last week before that missed field goal, I think that, like when you start to get to that part of the field, like part of your strategy has to be, okay, if it's third down and 8, third down and 7, okay, we've got to pick up about 5 yards, 4 to 5 yards on this so like we don't have to be in a field goal situation so that you can go for it on fourth down. Indy Forever wants to know confidence level the kicking game gets fixed by playoff time.
3.5. I don't have a whole lot of confidence
as well. Not a lot of confidence, unfortunately. Just like it is what it is at this point, and that is a situation that is broken and definitely needs to be fixed.
I hope so. I mean, maybe they're heading down that direction, but I got to see it first.
Salty wants to know who's a better team currently, Miami or BYU. I would go with Miami, even though they both got their flaws. BYU is just not a good offensive team. And so, like, those people out there and, Provo can complain all they want about, being behind Notre Dame and all this different stuff. You don't have a good offensive team. I'm sorry.
Yep, I would too. I think Miami definitely has their flaws. There's no doubt about it. And a lot of that starts and finishes with the quarterback. He either makes them elite or he makes them not elite. In the same breath. So that is part of the problem with Miami, but I trust them more than I do BYU.
Beefeater Indy 08, who would you want for a second round matchup? I'm saying Ohio State for 2 reasons. No first round bye teams won last year, and I would want them early in case the injury bug pays another visit.
I mean, you're going to have to go through Ohio State, I think, at some point. If you get them early, you get them early. You get them late, you get them late. I don't think it matters to me who you get, but I'm not afraid of them either. So I'll say that if that's who the second round matchup is, I don't think all 4 teams that got a bye are going to lose again this year.
I don't either. Again, remember it's a different seeding system this year, and part of the reason that all the first round playoff bye teams lost last year is because you had a team like Arizona State, for example, that got a first round bye because of the fact that they were one of the 4 highest rated conference champions. So I think worst case 2 first round bye teams lose this year. I don't think they're all going to lose this year. I would still like Ohio State, Indiana. I think that they're fairly similar. I would like to I wouldn't mind seeing Notre Dame, Indiana in that second round matchup personally.
A little neutral field action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bring game day. Let Cignetti go out there about 35 minutes before kickoff, spout his mouth off, and let's roll.
That's right. Last question. Who's a better team currently, Georgia or Texas A&M?
I mean, I'm going to go with Texas A&M right now. I mean, they had the internal fortitude to come back against South Carolina. That tells me, look, they came out flat. I get it, but that's a really good football team to come back from 30-3 and win 31-30. Like that's a good football team. So I would say A&M right now.
I think A&M as well, and I'm looking forward to seeing those 2 teams potentially play in the SEC championship game.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, that's going to do it. Vince, enjoyed it as always. Great questions from everyone. Notre Dame men's basketball coming up next. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com.